we send it to town hall,
No,
then council writes the article and they put it
they
in.
understand,
Yes,
okay, well,
they do.
this doesn't make any sense.
So I was confusing, right? And the other thing about it is they suggested just take betterments out of it altogether, because it's a polarizing word, right? And it's still upsetting people seeing the word betterments in. But
So
our point is,
call it something different,
so,
the same thing?
They would, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, they wouldn't pay a betterment, they would pay a sewer connection fee when the.
Oh, okay.
so
okay,
the
okay.
developer, if we don't put betterments in up front, they will not pay a dime of the costs of the project. It'll be the grant and the water rates. It'll be water rates for the water piece, the grant for the entire sewer piece, and whatever additional money you have on the grant beyond the cost of the sewer can help defray the cost of the water work, and then the rest of the cost will be paid with the water rates. And then, when the developer is ready to tie in, they would then have to pay a connection fee based on the town's rates. So there'd be no upfront money from the developer. They'd still pay, it would probably, based on the cost of the connection fee, that would be more, most likely. We don't know what the final costs are yet, but the numbers we're running now, based on the 6 million, are that it would probably cost them, they would pay more in a connection fee than they would to just pay the entire betterment of whatever this. So the other way to do it is to leave the betterment language in there, use the grant to entirely pay for the water. Don't use your water rates. Pay, because the grant is for both the water and sewer until it's gone. You can use it for the water and sewer work. And then it would cover, then opposite of what I said in the other scenario, you have a little bit after you pay for the water work to pay for a piece of the sewer, and then whatever isn't paid would get assessed through betterments. So then it would be the grant and a betterment to the property at 47 Elm. The other way, it would be a grant and water rates to all the people in town on the water rates for the water improvements piece.
And tie-in connection fees for 47 Elm Street.
Right.
Eventually.
They still have to pay either way, yeah.
But
There's just two different ways to do it.
but not both.
You don't do both, no? Nope. This is where people get confused by betterment versus connection fee
So the
versus
betterment-
tie-in. Tie-in is a totally different
betterment-
thing.
For the 47 Elm Street scenario, this alternative is whatever is left over sewer becomes a betterment cost,
Yeah, whatever doesn't get paid with the
and
grant.
a function of $16,000 per user or anything else.
Nope, we're
Just
trying,
straight-
so we have to pay for the capital cost of the project. It ends up being $6 million.
So I understand.
Yeah, okay.
On the revised one, after the word sewer betterment, you say in privilege fees. Do you know what a privilege fee is?
So yeah, no, I do. So privilege fees are, so there wouldn't be any on this one. So privilege fees are the properties that are improved by the project, but can't be assessed a betterment at the time. There are certain properties that can't, like town properties can't be assessed a betterment.
Well, we passed that one, anyway,
Yeah.
we don't pay anything. I've never heard.
So, and then privilege fees are down the road for future, in the future, if you change the use of the property. If you paid a betterment and you had a single family home, and then you sell the property and somebody comes in and builds 3 homes, it subdivides it into 3 homes, there would be a privilege fee for the additional 2 units. So that's why the betterments and privilege fee is the title of the law. It's called betterments and privilege fees. That's why it's listed there.
So, I don't know if having the word sewer betterment to the general public would confuse them, even though we are clear that this is just what it is. Seems to be a bad word.
It does, it's a pretty, don't like that word.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why.
I don't like
Alright,
that.
so, but it is what it is. I
So-
think it's important we have betterment and not wait for sewer connection fees.
Because.
I don't think
it
it's
doesn't
gonna
get
be your
built,
call
you don't
in the
get
end.
your connection.
It doesn't matter.
They're gonna
It's not
modify the
called-
language,
It's
yeah.
not called for the moment, so.
Yeah, how you're gonna present the article.
So Jack Conway, halfway through the special town meeting, basically turned to the audience and said, look, do not bring up anything about the property anymore. This is nothing, that's going to go through the whole due process. If he had done that at the beginning of the meeting would have lasted an hour less. Even though after he said it, people still brought it up.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can somehow convey the message that this has nothing to do with that, other than the fact we're providing a sewer to the property and the development process is completely separate. Because
It's still,
even though the developer says X, Y, and Z at the meeting, it's meaningless.
right, and that's, you're right, and it just turns into this. I mean, it's obviously,
It's very connected.
it's informing people's
Right.
decisions, right?
Excuse me, I think we need to address the messages up here because people think you're still proposing a betterment for all the residents.
I can read those.
Okay,
The
thank you.
question is, as far as I'm concerned, as a resident of Elm Street, we are concerned with the $12,000 betterment fee, which we are paying in order for a profit company to be able to develop the site. That's not entirely true, but beyond that, we don't know what they're going to do with the site. Is it going to be a 55+ community? We aren't getting a lot of detail about what's going on. And then you guys are talking about the word, and it's not the word that we have an issue with, it's the cost. So I think it needs to be made clear that the article that's being proposed now
Will
will
not
be
have,
zero cost to the residents, and the
Yeah.
residents will never be
You know,
able to tie into the
I
sewer.
thought we started, yeah, that's, so that is, so yeah, there's, that proposal is gone. There is no longer any intention to move forward with a proposal to bring the gravity pipe and the municipal pump station to that neighborhood. This is about getting a sewer service just to the property of 47 Elm. If betterments are assessed, it would just be a betterment. 47 Elm would be the only property that is bettered by the sewer.
Right, and whatever goes in 47 Elm Street is not under the purview of this board.
It is not.
Correct.
No, we've been charged with
Hope
getting
that
the,
clears it up.
putting a project together that provides the infrastructure that has been identified as the limiting factor to be able to do anything with this property. You know, that all goes back to the master plan identified it, the town got the grants because they identified it as an area that they needed to do something, they needed to improve, and the limited infrastructure, specifically water and sewer, were the first obstacle, or one of the larger obstacles to being able to do anything with that property, regardless of what it is or who comes along and develops it. You know, it does, and I get it, it gets confusing in that there is a developer that has come quite a ways and has shown a serious interest in the property, but they haven't, you know, they can't do anything, is what's being explained to us and to everyone at town meeting, is that they can't get the financing to sign on the dotted line for anything without there being some commitment that there's gonna be water and sewer there.
Is there any other questions? I'm sorry.
No,
That's it right now.
I am being told that finance committee is meeting on the same channel at 6:45, as we had to squeeze this one in, so.
Alright,
Good.
so I
There
think,
are motions that need to be made, we gotta make them quickly.
yeah, no, that's all.
So what do you need from us tonight in order to move forward, Stephen?
I guess it's, if you guys are gonna, so the articles are due tomorrow
They are due tomorrow at 4 p.m.
by 4 p.m. and the town has asked you to put one in. We've been asked by the town, the Water and Sewer Department and Commission have been asked to submit an article. So we've presented an article. I would recommend, I guess that's the big discussion. You want to include the one that talks about betterments for the property, again, for only the property at 47 Elm. I think in the end, there's still gonna be discussion with the town over the exact wording of the article. The real issue is, are you gonna put forward an article to entertain a project for doing the water work as we've been discussing and providing, while you have the road dug up, providing a force main pipe that's dedicated to 47 Elm and connected to the town's sewer system, so that if and when they develop that property, they can put a pump in at that property and there'll be a piece of pipe right in front of there. They don't have to do anything in the public way to do that, and then it's just a matter of whether they pay at the time that they connect, or if they're gonna pay now through a betterment where they pick up whatever costs of the sewer work are not covered by the grant. That's really what the decision
Okay.
will be. So I would say make a motion that you're gonna submit the article and
I make a motion to submit the article as you presented it at our meeting tonight.
Yeah.
Identified as article number.
I second that
As
motion.
written.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
and it will be discussed.
Yeah.
So you, conveys it to the town hall.
I will get it too. The powers that be.
All right, and then I imagine, as you said, that we need to go before the well, there'll be other articles. We don't know what else is on the special, but anyway, when we go before the finance committee to discuss it and the selectmen again, is that correct?
I would believe so, yes.
Okay.
Are we gonna have like a joint meeting with them?
So the way it's always worked, because we've been through this a couple of times now already, is the select board, each of them, and it's been different with who goes first, but the most recent time, the select board met and voted on it first. So for any, so they're gonna be voting on all the town meeting articles and the special town meeting articles. They're gonna, not voting on them, just hearing about them and having a discussion. I mean, typically, so then they vote whether they recommend, right? It's basically a vote to either recommend or
Yeah.
not. And then the same thing with the finance committee, and we'll
So
just be
we'll-
back in the same process, just with a different article, that that scales the scope back, addresses some of what has been the primary concern in terms of the.
When is the
impact of
deadline for the grant? Is it June of next year?
June 30th, 2026.
The money has, yeah, we have to have spent the money.
And our meeting is the end of May this year?
It's
Springtime
May
meeting?
16th,
May
Nine-
16th?
or 19th?
16th, 19th,
I got it written down here.
It's the 19th.
Are we
Yeah,
good?
May
Are we
19th.
good with 12 months to finish that?
It's getting tighter and tighter. You know, we keep saying this is our last chance. I
Yeah.
feel like May.
That's why.
So what I was explained to Frank and John, that, you know, the biggest thing is, the reason I'm saying yes, we still can do it, is taking out the pump station and the gravity sewer. Those were some of the longest time drivers of the project, getting the pumps ordered, the mechanical equipment. It's all pipe. The materials are fairly readily available. There's not a long lead time on any of the
Does,
stuff that they need.
does the finished project final paving or once the infrastructure is working? Like if it was to be cut that close and just the base was on the road?
That way, it's just spending $3.5 million.
We have to spend a grant. So yeah, that, it doesn't, so, and we'll use the grant monies as soon as the construction monies come in, and then the remainder will get bonded and paid ultimately either through
Right?
the water rates.
So our next step will be to, have a joint meeting of some sorts, or some sort of meeting. with
You'll be
another
invited
board.
to the meeting.
Okay.
I think it would not be a terrible thing to have a meeting with both boards in the same room before they're actually
I agree.
voting on whether they support it or not. And
And-
just,
And I think that'll be,
Well, it's up, it's up to them whether or not they want us to be there, so.
Yeah.
We can offer our services and we'll go from there.
okay.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? Any concerns? Anything we can answer that's up there, John? All right, well,
I
will that
move
be,
to adjourn the meeting.
Second,
all in favor?
aye,
Aye, thank you very much.
thank you.